Hello, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of 6 of our our beginners course for everyone that's interested in getting into online arbitrage, selling on Amazon. So last week we covered all of the basics. So basically, what online arbitrage is, that like all of the terminology that you're going to come across when you start selling on Amazon, which all might seem a little bit alien to you, but this last week should have helped. So it's all of the basic foundations that you need to get in place in order to start your journey. And if you followed on from our goal last week as well, so we asked you to set up a Seller Central account, or at least, look into it. Hopefully you've done that. So hopefully you've got that started. And so then this is the next step. So this week we are talking about sourcing and then deal analysis as well. So we're going to give you some tips on how to source, and then some of the things that you need to look at once you have found the items that you do want to sell on Amazon.
So taking that next step, isn't it? So you understand what you're doing now, so you can start finding those products to sell, which I think a lot of people see as like, the first real thing to do and exciting, and start finding products. And then you can kind of see where you're going to fit in terms of what you're going to be selling.
It is. I mean, it is exciting. Like you found that deal. Like that's pretty cool.
And what your profit could be and things like that.
Yeah. So we have sourcing. Now, sourcing, it's basically where you find items that you're going to sell on Amazon. So basically, you want to buy something as cheaply as you can and then sell it for a higher price in order to make yourself a profit. Now, there are a couple of things that can help you out whilst you are looking for things to buy and then eventually sell online. So obviously, when you head onto any website that you're looking at, try and find out if they have like a sales section or just like any offers or discounts or anything like that going. It might also be worth filtering things from like what's priced lowest through to highest. That way you start off with the cheapest stuff, see what's going on there, because sometimes they can hide these sort of offers and they don't necessarily have a specific section for these kind of things. So you might have to do a little bit of digging around, but hopefully you find some things like that. Other things to check out as well are things like cashback sites. So they can help you with finding offers. So something along the lines of, say, spend £40 on this type of product and, receive £10 off. And so it'll give you things like that you can take advantage of, which can turn what originally might not have been a profitable deal into a profitable deal, because you are saving that money. You're not spending so much on it as you would have done otherwise. You've got things like vouchers, whether that is a virtual or a physical thing. If you were doing retail arbitrage, you might have physical vouchers, like newspaper cutouts, whatever, things that your grandma might have saved you or something like that. Or you can find like virtual discount codes and things like that, or tokens that can help reduce your bills. So something that you enter in at the checkout usually, and then that will knock you a certain amount off of the total. As I mentioned, look out for clearances and discounts and things like that. And also consider wholesale. So buying items in bulk from wholesalers can mean that, well, depending on the wholesaler, there can sometimes be a little bit of price negotiation involved. So that might be something that's worth looking into. So with all of those tips, hopefully that helps you with your sourcing. Now, a step that is just as important as sourcing is making sure that the deals that you find are actually going to work out for you. So there's no point going ahead going, yep, I found that item, I'm going to sell it, because you don't know if it's going to be profitable. You don't know if you actually can sell it. So there's things like eligibility and things on Amazon that come into play. And also like how well the item performs on item. Sorry, I messed that up completely. Just how well the item performs on Amazon full stop is what I was meant to say. And so when it comes to deal analysis, obviously you might have your own method, you might have your own things that you look at. But we want to recommend a piece of software to you that can help you with this big time. So let me bring Kaylee back. There we go. I'll go. She's just going to summarize the software for you, and then we're going to play a couple of videos for you. So see you in a moment.
So a lot of you might have already heard of BuyBotPro. As Matt said, it's definitely something that we recommend in terms of helping with your deal analysis. So it is effectively deal analysis software. So you input your buy price, you hit that analyze button, and then it will analyze thousands of data points and give you basically amazing information about that deal, effectively whether it's going to something that's going to be profitable for you. Is it a good deal or not? Is it something you should be buying to then sell on Amazon as part of your business? We're going to cover obviously using BuyBotPro in the videos, but general information that you should be looking at when you're analyzing a deal, whether you have BuyBotPro or not. So kind of key points, key pieces of information and things that you should be taking into account when you're looking. So I think the first video we've got for you is analyzing a deal in general and also focusing on the manual sourcing accelerator, which is one of the amazing features of BuyBotPro. So Matt will talk in a bit of detail about that as well.
Hey, I'm going to be talking to you about the manual sourcing accelerator in BuyBotPro, which allows you to analyze a deal whilst you are out and about on different website sourcing. So you can essentially do two jobs at once and help streamline your workflow. Understandably, not everyone here is going to have BuyBotPro. You might have a similar kind of tool with a similar kind of function, or you might not have any tools as of yet, which is perfectly fine. And so in that case, I'm going to keep this video very real and quite ground level. So as we go along, I'm going to point out some of the things that I would look out for while sourcing, and also some of the things that I would urge you to pay attention to when you do your own analysis of a deal, because they are quite important and they are universal as well, regardless of if you have a tool to help you or not. Any Amazon seller should look out for these things and consider them before making a purchasing decision. So hopefully all of that advice helps you. And so prior to recording this video, I did have a brief look at this website and I picked out an item that I thought looked good, but whether or not it actually is, we'll find that out together. And that's just the reality of sourcing. You'll find things that that look good, and hopefully they are good, and you can go ahead and buy it and sell it and make yourself a nice profit. Sometimes things look really good, but for whatever reason, it's just not meant to be, which can be a bit of a pain, but it's not a complete loss. As you can potentially keep an eye on those items and sell them in the future, or some things you will come across and they just won't work out whatsoever, but that's just part of sourcing. And so what I've done is I've come to this website, and the first thing I've done is gone to the sell section, which is my first piece of advice. Always look for any clearances or sales or any deals or anything like that. And so as you can see there, as we scroll down, there's things that have been discounted, there's things that are on offer, that are part of a deal. And so something that I did pick out earlier, just so that way we're not running through this entire website for ages, is I found this item here that was originally $12.95 and is now $8.45. And I've just noticed as well, there is a bit of a deal attached there. I won't read all of that out, but that is just a bonus if you were to go ahead and buy this item. So what I'm going to do is highlight the title here, right click, and I've got a BuyBotPro option there. So if I click on that, the manual sourcing panel will appear and find this item for me in the UK Amazon marketplace. So it'll come up with a bunch of results showing me this item and also similar items as well. If I wanted to look at this item in different marketplaces, I can by clicking on any of them at the top here. And if this was getting in my way whilst I am sourcing, I can use the minimize button there to minimize it down to that little B icon and open it up as and when I please. Obviously, we're going to keep it open, otherwise I've got nothing to show you. So the first thing that we have is obviously it has the title, we've got the item there, we've got the rating, we've got the ASIN, the buy box price, the BSR, which is the best seller rank, which shows me how well an item has been selling / how popular it is. So if you don't know what BSR is, I mean, if we haven't already talked about it, let's say within a category you've got 100,000 items within a category. The item at number 100,000 is doing the worst, so it's hardly selling, it's not very popular, whereas the item at number 1 is doing the best, it is selling really, really well. So the closer you are to 1, the better. But let's say you have 100,000 things and you've got something at number 1,000. That is way closer to 1 than it is to 100,000. So even that kind of BSR is quite good as well. So if we click on BuyBotPro here, it opens up the main BuyBotPro panel where we have our buy price and sell price, well, the buy box price. So we'd enter this information in. Obviously this will self-populate here, and then we just need to go ahead and click Analyze. So BuyBotPro has looked at thousands of different data points for us to bring us a whole host of essential information. Now, as promised, as we go along, I'll mention some of the things that you definitely want to look out for before you go ahead and So as promised, I'm going to go through and tell you some of the things that I would urge you to keep in mind before you go ahead and purchase the item. So at an initial glance, so far so good. So the first thing that we are looking at here is in the dashboard and alerts. So the dashboard is linked to your Amazon Seller Central account itself, which is how it pulls through this information and determines it. So you've got hazmat here, which lets us know if the item is at all hazardous. You've got eligibility, so if you are allowed to sell the item full stop. You might find that as a new seller, you are not eligible to sell certain items or in certain categories. And then you've got dangerous goods. So if the item is considered to be a dangerous good, and that is indicated by the colors here. So it works on the basis of a traffic light system. If you've got red, it's negative, it's bad news, it's a no-go. If you've got orange, it is a maybe, but it's more of a case of we need to do our own due diligence just to double check that we are okay with whatever it is flashing up as orange for. And if it shows up as green, that's good news, it's positive, we're all clear. So what we've got here is it tells us that the item is not hazardous, it's not a dangerous good, and eligibility, we are eligible to sell this product. Eligibility is quite an important one. Obviously, if we're not allowed to sell it, then we can't buy it. So then we've got the alerts here, which is determined by the item itself. So it lets me know things like if the item is meltable, so if heat's going to affect it. This can change depending on different factors like the type of product it is, and also things like the time of year. So if you've got things like a chocolate bar or a wax candle or something, it might be fine during the winter, but in the summer, obviously when it's hotter, it may indicate as being meltable. So it is something to keep an eye on, again, depending on the product. You've got the IP radar, so that is if the brand itself allows the reselling of its items by third-party sellers like you and me. You've then got oversize, so if you're going to potentially be liable for any oversized charges, particularly if it is a big item. And then you've got the buy box analysis, which lets you know if Amazon are sharing the buy box. So again, you've got these color indicators. So this item is not meltable, which is great news. There are no known PL issues with this. The IP radar, again, is also quite important. So I'd definitely advise checking if the brand does allow reselling of its items, as if you do go ahead and try and sell something that does have PL issues, then it can lead to things like account suspensions, which we want to avoid at all costs. It's unlikely that we're going to have an oversized charge on this item. And in the last 90 days, Amazon are known to have shared the buy box on a regular and consistent basis, which is great. So far, so good. If we then come to the details section here, this is all of our number work. So telling us things like the profit margin, the break-even price, so where we're not selling at a profit nor a loss. We've then got our total costs here, and if we hover over this figure here, we get a breakdown table of everything that is involved in our total costs, including things like the Amazon fees, which BuyBotPro gets directly from Amazon at the point when you press Analyze. And also it's taken into account things that we have in our BuyBotPro settings, like our prep fees, shipping costs and such. And then provided that we do sell at this price up here, this is how much we would make profit-wise and what our return on investment would be, both of which are quite good, I do have to say. But then as we scroll a little bit lower, the confidence score that BuyBotPro has given us is quite low. Now, if we hover over this, it gives us the top 3 things to bear in mind if we were to go ahead with this item. And so it's telling me that the recent estimated sales volumes have been very low and that the sell price is unstable. Now, this is something that we can check out a little bit later on. But then it's also telling me that this deal has great profit, which is a good point and something that we did see up here as well. So there is that. The suggested purchase quantity, it won't give me a suggestion because the confidence score is not over 50%. And so then let's look at some of these points that BuyBotPro has told us here in the confidence score. So if we scroll down a little bit lower, we can see here with the estimated sales calculator, it has not sold very much at all. The people that are on this listing, there's only 3, and even they haven't got very many in stock at all. Then if we come back up here and click on the charts, the first thing we have is our main sales chart. And so right off the bat there, I can see that this is a little bit worrying. So if I look at something like the BSR, for example, let's toggle some of these off. And so the BSR is this green line. What we want from this is we want it to be obviously as close to the bottom of the chart as possible, as that means a lower number. As I say, the closer you are to 1, the better. But it spends more time at a not so great BSR. And also what you want from this line is for it to have lots of movement. So for every piece of movement, that means there's been at least 1 sale for the item. It could be more than 1, but that means at least 1. So hardly any movement like this is not a good sign. And that is reflected here in the sales heat map, which is a bar, or at least would be a bar. If it had a bit more color on it, that'd be a bit easier to see. But basically, the more red on this bar, the better the item is selling. Obviously, there's a lot of white, so the item has hardly been selling that well at all. And these little orange patches mean that it sold all right, like 1, a couple, something like that sold. And that is in the last 90 days. And so obviously we can't see that it picks up. We can't see that it sells very well at all. And so just based on that, it might not be something that we want to go ahead with. Obviously, the decision is yours at the end of the day. And everything did look really, really good up until that point. Even if it does make us a good profit and it is a good return on investment, if it's hardly selling, then it just means that we might have to wait a very long time before we do make that profit, or it ends up being something that we buy and end up just keeping in stock and not able to sell it. So this might be something that we want to avoid, but again, it's completely up to you. It could be something that you would want to keep an eye on and maybe purchase in the future. So with BuyBotPro as well, you can link a Google Sheet up to it. So you can have a spreadsheet of all of the good items that you found. What you do with the spreadsheet is completely up to you. So maybe you do have a list of things that you want to keep an eye on. So once you have linked a Google Sheet to BuyBotPro, you can just hit the little green button there, and that will send this item and the information that BuyBotPro has worked out through to your spreadsheet. So hopefully that has given you a bit of insight into what to look out for when you are sourcing, and also things that you need to pay attention to when you are analyzing a deal. Hopefully that helps. Back to us.
Back.
So that was just a brief walkthrough. I mean, it was a bit of a longer video, but it's basically the start to finish of finding a deal and analyzing it. And what I was doing there was giving you a very real situation where initially it looks like a good deal and you'd be like, what, I'll be crazy not to go for it. But then as you analyze it a little bit further, yes, it does have some good points, but it might not have been such a good idea to go ahead with after all, which is something that you may find that you do come across. And yes, it's frustrating, but then that's where you can use things like the Google Sheets, for example, to send that item over to that sheet. So then you can remember it for a future date, and then come back to it, hopefully at a time when it does perform a little bit better. It might be one to keep an eye on. So yeah, what I was doing there was just giving you a very real start to finish, sort of like finding a deal and analyzing it. And well, you might want to look at a little bit more than what I was explaining there, but those are just some of like the more important things to be looking at. Not that the other things aren't important, but just some of like the things that you should definitely pay attention to when you analyze a deal.
I guess it fits in with what we were saying before about, you know, getting to that step and being excited and wanting to find products, but making sure that you are actually looking at everything that you need to look at, not that initial like, oh yeah, great, go for it. I'm sure people probably are generally more on the other end and that you're a bit wary, but as long as you've got those kind of points covered and you know what you're looking for, then the more you do it, you'll quickly start to, you know, discount or yeah, that's a good one, you know, more quickly, because you'll just get used to the information that you're looking for.
Definitely. And I mean, like, obviously, if you don't have BuyBotPro or anything like that, then you might have your own things that you look out for. But that's just like, I mean, a perk to having that software is just the fact that you can use things like the manual sourcing accelerator. So you can both source and analyze on the same page. You don't have to have loads of tabs open. I mean, even if you did go to Amazon, you don't have to spend so much time trying to like figure out all these different bits and bobs. You just click, and within seconds, BuyBotPro is giving you pretty much everything you could possibly need to know, and more about a certain item. So all in all, that is such powerful software.
Yeah, definitely. It's just guiding you through it, isn't it? Basically, it's like having that little bit of help there all the time and just guiding you through the information that you need to look at.
So that was like a start to finish of like analyzing a deal. And I did mention some of these things in that video, but we've got some other videos where I go into a little bit more detail about some of the basics that you should be looking at when you analyze a deal, and hopefully this helps with your understanding. So the next one that we want to talk to you about is things that, things like eligibility, keeping an eye on things like if a product has any IP issues and things like that. So this is in BuyBotPro what we call the dashboard and alert section, and that's what I'm going to play for you now and explain what each one is. Even if you don't have BuyBotPro, it's something to bear in mind as we are watching this video. So we'll see you in a moment.
See you in a minute.
Talk to you about some really important things to take into account before you go ahead and buy an item, or indeed before you actually go and sell the item on Amazon. So in BuyBotPro's case, you can find all these make or break factors here in the dashboard and alerts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through each one and work my way down. So the dashboard in BuyBotPro, you need to link up to your Amazon Seller Central account, because this is how all of this information is determined. So if you are enrolled in things like the Dangerous Goods program, if you are eligible to sell an item, that's how it's going to know. So first up, you've got hazmat, which is basically if an item is hazardous. So let's look at the tooltip. Hazmat, hazardous material, is restricted for FBA sellers, although you can consider fulfilling the item yourself, so merchant fulfilled. If you are an FBA seller, this might be a reason for you to dabble in a bit of FBM, but please do your own due diligence carefully. Eligibility, that's quite an important one. So this is if you are allowed to sell an item full stop. You might find that as a new seller on Amazon, you are restricted from selling in certain categories, or you're not allowed to sell certain items. But that will come over time as you keep selling on Amazon. So you'll be eligible to sell more things as you keep going. There's no point buying anything that you aren't eligible to sell. And then you've got dangerous goods. So this is if an item is considered to be dangerous. So if it's going to be an explosive, or if it's got some like harsh chemicals or something that make it up. So let's take a look at this tooltip. Dangerous goods tells you whether the ASIN is a dangerous good or not, and if you're allowed to sell it. So the dangerous goods program, which you can enroll in, allows you to sell hazmat items via FBA. Some items included in the dangerous goods program don't require you to be a part of the program. However, certain criteria must be in place to send via FBA. So again, make sure you do your own due diligence. For other items, you must be enrolled in the dangerous goods program in order to sell. So how these things are indicated, the same with the alerts as well, is via this traffic light system. So if you get a red dot, that's negative, it's bad news, it's a no-go. If you've got orange, it is a maybe, but it's more, you need to do your own due diligence just to double check and make sure that you are okay to go ahead in whatever area it flashes up as orange for. And if you've got green, it's positive, it's good news, you're all clear. So let's take a look at the alerts. This is dependent on the item itself. So you've got things like meltable. So if the item is going to be affected by heat in any way. Now this can change depending on the item and circumstances. So if we take something like a chocolate bar or a wax candle, those are great examples, as in the winter they may indicate as not being meltable. But in the summer, obviously it's a lot hotter, they may be affected by heat at that point. So again, depending on the item and the circumstance, this might be something to keep an eye on. You've then got the IP radar. So that's if the brand itself allows the reselling of its items by third-party sellers like you and me. So how BuyBotPro knows this is we have a brilliant sister company called Getting Suspended that help lots of clients that have suspension issues. Therefore, they're the first to know about any sort of like problematic brands and items, and they share that information directly with BuyBotPro. So we are actively monitoring lots and lots and lots of different brands. So that is a really important one to make sure that you check, because basically if you try and sell something that the brand doesn't want you selling, that can lead to things like Amazon suspensions, which we obviously do not want. Then you've got oversize, if you're potentially going to be liable for any oversized charges, particularly if it is a big item. And then you've got the buy box analysis, and that basically lets you know if Amazon are sharing the buy box or not. If they aren't, and if they are hogging the listing, then there's not really too much point in trying to join on and compete with them, because Amazon are keeping it to themselves, and you won't stand much of a chance at all of getting that buy box or, you know, making many sales. So that is another one to pay attention to. So yeah, all of these are kind of make or break factors. Definitely look into them as you're going along with BuyBotPro. Obviously, it's all laid out here nice and easy for you. So that is the dashboard and alerts and things to make sure that you take into account. Back to us.
Really, really important section.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
I guess some of it's kind of, it's not even should you sell it, it's are you allowed to sell it in the first place, which is an automatic kind of discount that product if you're not able to, if there's nothing you can do about that, especially if you're new. Obviously if you can get ungated, then it's worth trying that, but if you can't, then you know that, you know, there's no point in sitting there poring over all of that amazing information because you can't sell the product anyway. Exactly. And then you move on to should you sell it, so things like the IP alerts and things like that as well, which obviously a lot of people understandably are a bit apprehensive and a bit scared about, but especially in that dashboard and alert section in BuyBotPro makes it super simple for you, especially the traffic light system.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you really don't want to be selling anything that has any IP issues at all, because I mean that will lead to account suspension, which is something that you really don't want. I mean, BuyBotPro does make it like really obvious, obviously, with that traffic light system. But then if anything like did have any IP issues, or if you weren't eligible to sell, it will tell you big and red in the confidence score. It'll literally just say no, 0%, like don't go for it. And you should definitely 100% listen to that. So yeah, so really important. Definitely note that stuff down. Again, if you don't have BuyBotPro, definitely find out if you are eligible to sell. It might take a bit of research, but you know, find out if there are any IP issues or anything like that with the brands or items that you're looking at.
I guess something that I should mention is that with the IP radar and BuyBotPro and IP issues in general, you know, they will always crop up at some point. So just because there aren't any known IP issues with a certain brand or a certain product at this point in time doesn't mean there might not be any in the future. So people do sometimes still get caught out, but by using that information in the first place, you're paying attention to all of the ones that are already known about. So that kind of, you know, decreases your chances massively of being caught out by something. Because I think, you know, some people, you say, you know, it was green on BuyBotPro, or, you know, but they will occur at some point. Unfortunately, some people have to be the first to receive those complaints. But by using information like the IP radar, like I said, you're massively decreasing your chances, because you've already got all of the ones that we know about.
So I can't see any comments or anything like that. So we'll move on to the next video, which is all about sales. So it's important to know how well a particular item sells. There's no point in everything looking amazing with it except the sales. If it's not selling, then it might not be something that you want to go ahead with. So within BuyBotPro, there's a little something called the estimated sales calculator. I won't say too much about it because the video is going to do the talking. So with that being said, I'll play that for you now, and we'll see you in a little while.
See you in a minute.
If you're analysing an item and it's set to make you a really good profit based on either your own workings out, or if you've used BuyBotPro or whatever, even if it's set to make you a good profit, if the item is not selling very well at all of that may be for nothing. So it's really important to make sure that you know how well this item is selling. So this is something that BuyBotPro can help you out with. So here you've got the estimated sales calculator. On the left, you have the previous 90-day average sales for the item. In the middle, you have the current sales for the item that's based on the last 30 days. And if you hover over that, as you can see there, you have the monthly sales for the item over the last 12 months. So here is really useful because you can see if this item does consistently sell well throughout the year, if it has any periods where it dips. But it looks like for most of the time for this item, every month it seems to do very well, with the exception being March and April. Even then it still did pretty good. It just wasn't selling what it usually would do. And so far this month, it's doing okay. I mean, at the time of recording this, we are only halfway through the month, so there's a whole other half of the month to go. So using all of these numbers, combined with several inbuilt algorithms and data that we purchase for you from sources like Keeper, BuyBotPro is then able to predict the average sales for this item over the next 90 days. Now, there are a lot of other deal analyzers out there that will heavily overestimate this number. And with BuyBotPro, again, it is a prediction, but if anything, it underestimates this number slightly. We think that's a lot more truthful because the amount that you buy, based on the data that you see here, you're more likely to sell. With an overestimated number, you might end up buying more thinking it's going to sell really well. And if anything, you might end up stuck with some stock, which just isn't what you want. You'd rather sell out and have to buy more than end up stuck with items. So that's why we think a slightly underestimated number is pretty good. So based on these numbers here, I mean, I'm sure you'd agree with me, it has sold really well in the past. It's currently selling really well. And over the last 12 months, it does consistently sell pretty good throughout the course of a year. And then the prediction as well, it's also set to do a lot better than it already is doing. And what it is already doing is really good. So I would go ahead and buy this item. Just from a sales point of view, it is selling really well. And let's say, for example, if these numbers were all relatively low, it was hardly selling anything, or if it was really unstable, one month it does really well, the next month and the month after maybe it does really, really bad, and then the following month it does okay, and it's really unstable like that, I'd probably want to look into it in a bit more detail to see why that could potentially be the case. But if it was doing things like that, and as I say, if it just wasn't selling that great at all and it was predicted to not do so great either, then that might be something I would seriously want to think about and potentially avoid. Again, regardless of how good a profit is going to make me, you don't want to be stuck with items, especially for a long period of time, because even if the profit looked like it was going to be good at the point when you've analysed it and you've gone ahead and bought it, down the line when you sell it, things like that can change. So you could even be selling at a loss down the line, which is something that you don't want. So again, make sure that you are aware of how well an item is selling, and that combined with other things, obviously that's going to help you with your judgment on whether or not to go ahead with an item. Back to us. Estimated sale.
No.
I mean, what a cool little thing to have in there. Like, yeah, I mean, especially the monthly breakdown chart as well. Like,
it just completely goes with what you said before the video, and that it's all well and good, you know, oh, my ROI would be this if I sold it at that price, and my profit would be this, and you know, look, all this money I can make. But if you're not going to sell that product, then you're not going to make that money. So it's great having those good numbers, but you need to make sure that you'll then actually sell the product.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, to be fair, I pretty much covered everything that we could cover with that one in that video. So we'll move on to the next one now, which would be, we'll take a look at the confidence score, which I did mention a short while ago. And then alongside that as well, we've got the suggested purchase quantity. So that is BuyBotPro basically giving you a hand with how many it thinks you should buy. I think I say the same thing in the video, but basically it is a suggestion at the end of the day. You don't have to go ahead with it. You can use that number as a starting point to figure out your own quantity, but it is just a nice to have that helping hand there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, so with that being said, I'll play that video and we'll get back to you in a few minutes.
See you on the other side.
At the confidence score and suggested purchase quantity in BuyBotPro. So when we are analysing a deal, it's important just to double check everything and make sure that all is well. However, with BuyBotPro, it does what any good friend would do and is letting you know what it thinks of the deal for that extra reassurance. So in this case, it's telling me that it's a good deal. It's giving me a confidence score of 70.94%. And if we hover over this, it gives us the top 3 things to bear in mind if we were to go ahead with this item. So regardless of the confidence score, whether it's bad, good, somewhere in the middle, the 3 things that it gives may not all be good, they may not all be bad, it might be a mixture of the two. So it's telling me that Amazon have the buy box and Amazon are on the listing. Now this is not the greatest news I could have ever hoped to hear, but it is useful nonetheless. So I just need to check what Amazon are doing on the listing, and if I do join the listing, I just need to keep an eye on Amazon and make sure that I'm keeping my price competitive if I have any chance of competing with Amazon. It's also telling me that the above average return on investment is 37%, which is great, thank you. And then we have the suggested purchase quantity. So basically, if we were to buy more than one of this item, BuyBotPro thinks this amount would be a good idea. Now, of course, this is just a suggestion. We can ignore it, or we can take that on board, or we can use this number as a starting point to figure out our own quantity. But either way, it's got us part of the way there, which is quite helpful. Now, the way that I would judge the quantity is by looking at the estimated sales calculator as well. So if the numbers on here look pretty good and it is predicted to do quite well, I may want to take this on board, whereas if the numbers were relatively low, obviously the suggestion would probably reflect that, but I can make my decision based on things like that. Now, it doesn't just blot out any odd random confidence score or suggested purchase quantity just to make itself look good. These things can be determined by you and what you set in your settings. So if we go through to the BuyBotPro settings up here, the suggested purchase quantity works with your stock capital. Okay, so that's your overall budget that you have to spend. So in there, I've got £1,000. Now you can set a max buy count as well. So it won't give me a suggestion that is anything more than the max buy count, nor will it suggest a number that makes me spend more than 10% of my overall budget. As for the confidence score, that works with the BuyBotPro score adjuster settings here. So this is everything that you want to achieve from a deal. Okay, these are your goals. So in here you can set a minimum profit that you want to achieve, a minimum return on investment, and in here as well you can set BSR parameters, so a minimum BSR and a maximum BSR. So what I've got set there is I want to achieve a minimum profit of at least £1, a minimum return on investment of at least 10%, and for the BSR of the item that I'm analysing, I want it to be within the top 20% of this item's category. Now, sometimes people have made the mistake of when they go to enter in £1 in the minimum profit, for example, they'll accidentally include the extra zeros and have something like 100. As you can imagine, not many products are going to flag up as good if you've got £100 minimum profit in there. But not to worry, even if you do get a bad confidence score, BuyBotPro will tell you to check your criteria settings just in case there is something you've put in there by accident. And if so, you can correct that and obviously reanalyze and get a different confidence score. But that is how they both work in BuyBotPro. Hopefully you'd find that really useful if you do use this tool. And if you don't, then always just double check your own workings out and your own analysis of the product, just to make sure and give yourself that extra peace of mind before you go ahead and buy the item. Back to us.
Back. Another great video.
Thank you. I do try to be thorough. But I mean, yeah, like having the confidence score and like the suggested purchase quantity, I mean, as I literally just said, like it's super handy. It's like if you need that extra bit of reassurance with, you know, is this deal good? Yeah, is it actually good? BuyBotPro will help you out there, and it looks at everything to give you that confidence score. And then, as I say, if you hover over it, then you get like the top 3 things to take into account, you know, before you actually go ahead with the item. And so just make sure that you pay attention to that, regardless of what confidence score it gives you. Just check on that, and you know, make sure you are aware of those things, especially, you know, if it does say something like Amazon are on the listing and, you know, they are kind of like dominating it a little bit. It can really help you. It can really help you make your decision. And then with the suggested purchase quantity thing as well, as I say, it isn't just a random number, so it does work with you know, the analysis and then the parameters that you have set in your settings as well. So hopefully you find that one really helpful if you are using BuyBotPro, that is.
I think it helps you as well kind of work out what your criteria is, because you have to input it in order for BuyBotPro to work that out.
Yeah.
So in your own mind, it helps you think about, what do you want to achieve from a deal? What do you want your ROI to be? And you can't really you can't move forward until you have an idea of what you want those to be. So it's good in that it kind of makes you decide what you want to then input them into your settings.
Mm-hmm. So that brings us to our last video of the webinar. So have you ever wanted to have a quick a quick look at what everyone else is doing on the listing and make sure that you're aware of everything that's going on? So I can't get over what I just said.
I think as a business, you need to know kind of what you're up against, don't you?
Exactly.
In any field of business, and especially when you're selling a product, you need to know what you're going to be up against, what you're going to be facing, and also use that as a tool to work out if it's a viable product for you.
Yeah. So we'll play this last video for you now, and then we'll get back to you after this and say goodbye. So yeah, see you in a few minutes.
See you soon.
So want to be able to make sure of before you go ahead and buy an item and join a listing is the competition that is on that particular item. So BuyBotPro lays this out nice and easily for us to see, which makes it a lot easier to explain as well. With the competition analysis. So it shows you the top 10 sellers that are on this listing. Now, if there are more than 10, the reason why it doesn't show them in such detail is because you only want to concern yourself with the top 10. Okay, these are the guys that you want to aim to beat. There's no point competing with someone that's, let's say, number 22 out of 53 that are on a listing. You want to compete with the sellers that are in the top 10. And so how this lays it out is you've got numbers 1 through 10 here, and then you have the stock levels as well. So you can see those, and then it also color codes them as to what type of seller they are. So you've got orange for Amazon, green for an FBA seller, grey for a merchant fulfilled seller, and blue for merchant fulfilled prime. Now, if you are an FBA seller, your main competition will be Amazon and FBA. And then also what you can do with this as well, it's kind of a sneaky little trick. If you click on a stock level number for a particular seller, it takes you through to the Amazon store, so you can see everything else that they are selling as well. And BuyBotPro will come up with the quick look box and the manual sourcing panel as well to help you kind of reverse source in a way. So it'll come up with some of the basic information about each item, and then you can go ahead and analyze them in a bit more detail. And you can go ahead and analyze them in a bit more detail if you want to. What you can also do with this, I'll just show you very quickly, is go into store details, and you'll be able to see that seller, the seller ID, their rating, ASIN count, the top brands that they sell, and the top categories that they sell in. So you can get a real sort of sneaky insight into other sellers, what they're selling, and how they are, sort of a brief overview as to how they are as a seller. So going back to this page, now it will also show you the price that they are selling the item for. And then if you were to sell at any of these prices, it just shows you how much profit you would make and what the ROI would be selling at that you'd achieve by selling at these prices. And then you can also see the reviews that each seller has had and what percentage of those are positive feedback. So you get a nice insight into your main competitors on a listing. At the bottom, just to give you a quick look into the grander scheme of things, it shows you the total amount of stock that the top 10 sellers have got, so it adds all of these up, and then it shows you the totals for all sellers. So in total on this listing, there's 6 prime sellers and 23 merchant fulfilled sellers. You've then got the multi-market analyzer. So this is just going to show you briefly what is going on with the item in other marketplaces, because sometimes it is worth looking in other marketplaces, and this might be something, if you don't have this particular tool, it might be something to take a quick look at manually just by finding the item on the different marketplaces. But here it lays it out nice and simply for you. So you've got the different marketplaces here. Hovering over these flags will give you a keeper chart, which shows you what has been going on with this item over the course of time. You can see the BSR for the item in each marketplace. So right now it's doing the best BSR wise in France. then you can see the buy box price it is selling for within that marketplace. But from the looks of things, it does look like Amazon are dominating the listing in all marketplaces. So it might be something to be cautious about, or maybe you might want to come back to this item at a future point in time, maybe when Amazon aren't dominating it so much. And then again, if you were to sell at any of these prices, it tells you how much profit you would make, what your ROI would be, and what your break even would be, so where you're not selling at a profit nor a loss. Obviously, these are the marketplaces as well are going to take into account things like fees and such when you do sell in another marketplace or to another country. These ones are blank, and usually this is because the item is not selling in that marketplace, so it's out of stock completely for the time being, something like that. So it's usually nothing to worry about. But yeah, as I say, it's always worth looking into who your competition actually is. And then also if Amazon are dominating a listing, even if they are sharing the buy box, because it might be something that does, and understandably would put you off joining that listing at this current point in time. And then it is also worth just checking if it might be worth your while selling an item in another marketplace, because on some occasions that can be the case and we wouldn't want you to miss out. I hope that helps you, and back to us.
Two really, really good features there in BuyBotPro, and even if you don't have BuyBotPro, things that you should definitely be looking at. So who your competition would be. Again, you find a great product, but you need to look at your competition, you know, and Amazon as well, and are you going to have a chance at getting that buy box? And then if you do find a product that you think looks really good, could you potentially sell it in other marketplaces? But just because it's selling in one doesn't mean that it will sell well in another, but you get all of that information so you can work that out.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't have BuyBotPro there, then what you can do, like on every Amazon listing page, there is the bit that little box that says like other sellers, and then you can click on that. It'll show you all of their like prices, who they are, and such. But I think that the way that BuyBotPro lays it all out is really nice to see. And then I think it does it in the order of like who's closest to the buy box and things like that. So whoever's at one most likely has the buy box. And then just the other bits and pieces in there as well, like, you know, how, if you were to sell at that price, how much profit would you make? You know, things like that, because then that can inspire you for, like, you know, when you go to set your prices, which we are talking about in a couple of weeks' time. So definitely stick around for that. So that was the final video. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we had a goal for this week as well. Let me see if I can
as I like to call it
somewhere. There we go.
You guys, your homework.
There we go. So before next week, decide your own criteria / what you want from a deal, or find yourself a discount code to use. So figure out if you want a deal to have at least, I don't know, like 30% ROI, how much profit would you like to make from it? If you are using something like BuyBotPro or similar, that will show you things like the BSR of the item. I mean, even on Amazon itself, it will show you the BSR. So figure out, you know, what you would want BSR wise from an item as well. Or have a look at things like these cashback sites that I mentioned. Also sites as well that give you like these discount codes, things like that. Anything like that can help you with your sourcing. That's what you need to do. You need to go and find something like that.
Or do both.
Yeah, or do both. Yes. Yeah, that is.
Get really prepared.
Yeah. And so that was this week. Next week, we are talking more about deal analysis. So this week was focused on like the basics and the essentials. Not that everything else isn't important at all. It's just like this is one level of analysis. And next week, we've got like the next level. So a bit of like a more in-depth analysis. Let's say you've looked at all of like the basics and such, and then you were still struggling to decide or struggling to figure certain things out. The things that we're going to talk about next week with that decision even more. So that's something to look forward to. Join us next week. Thank you so much for watching. Take care for now, and see you next time. Bye, everyone. See you.